Hey everyone, today on Friday 5 and 5, I'm sharing 5 tips for training new musicians. As your church grows, your worship ministry should grow. And as the young people in your church show interest and desire to use their talents in God's kingdom, your worship ministry should grow. You should always be investing in and developing new talent. But this can present some challenges, especially if you feel like you have some limitations. I mean, how do I train a bass player when I don't play bass? And what about drums or guitar? Ideally, every worship department would have seasoned musicians willing to mentor new musicians learning their same instrument. You can watch this video next to find out why I believe mentoring is so important and how to be a great mentor. Unfortunately, it doesn't always work out. Maybe your seasoned musicians aren't quite on board with mentoring yet, or with work, family, and other ministry involvement, they simply don't have the time right now. Maybe you're in a smaller church or working with a smaller team and other seasoned musicians aren't available. Whatever the case may be, hopefully these 5 tips for training new musicians will help you out. Number 1, take the time to do what you can. I was about 14 when I started working with some other young people because our church was in desperate need of a drummer. I could keep a basic beat on the drums, but that was as far as my skill level went. I started off by simply showing the aspiring drummers what I did know. Then we meet at the church at least once a week for jam sessions. It wasn't long before they far surpassed my limited drumming ability and became great drummers. You can always use the excuse that I don't play this or that instrument, but if you lose the excuses, take the time to share what you do know and then practice with the new musicians. It can go much farther than you might think. That might mean you have to do a little research and learning of your own. Maybe you learn 3 or 4 notes on the bass yourself. Then teach and practice different songs that use those notes. Just make sure that you do what you can. Tip number 2 is reach out to other seasoned musicians. If you don't have someone who can mentor in your church, maybe a church in a neighboring city does. It's also great to host a workshop or bring in somebody a few times a year to work with your new musicians. Plus, they can work with your current band too. Remember that a financial investment is always worth it. It's an investment in other people and in the kingdom of God, so don't be afraid to spend some money if it comes down to it. Tip number 3 is to provide your new musicians with resources. We have access to so many great resources online. Do a YouTube search, find bloggers and online lessons. Song tutorials on different instruments are a great resource for new musicians. There are several subscription services like the UPCI Music Ministry or Mark Condon's iWorship that have instrument tutorials available for the worship songs we do in our churches. A service like this is a huge help if you're working with multiple musicians outside of your comfort zone. Tip number 4 is put your new musicians on the schedule. Experience is one of the best teachers and motivators that I know, and I can say this from personal experience. It might seem a little scary at first, but there are a couple different ways that you can do this. If you're able, set up additional instruments like keys, bass, or guitar, and let your new musicians play along without running them through your main monitors or house speakers. This gives them a chance to play in front of your congregation and play along with your team. Plus, you can minimize distractions if they're not quite ready to be heard yet. If they are ready, it's okay to sacrifice perfection and give the new musicians a chance. I really believe that the church is more thankful and proud that you invest in their friends and family members than if you only use seasoned pros and hit everything just right. Tip number 5 is don't forget the spiritual side of music ministry. Being a part of the worship team, whether it's playing an instrument or singing, goes way beyond being the best and hitting all the right notes. As you train new musicians, make sure they're developing a heart of worship and service. Make sure they know that there are things required of them spiritually and then hold them accountable. They're not just a musician, but they're a worship leader on and off the platform. Thanks for watching the video. I hope one or all of these 5 tips for training new musicians helps you out. Let me know in the comments what your number 1 tip for training new musicians is. If you like this video and want to see more content like it, then give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel.